This is a clip from our Patreon Q&A show where every week we answer your questions on everything West Ham. If you're interested in getting your questions answered or just want to see the full episode, head on over to patreon.com/analyticsunited for that and so much more. The first week's free. Enjoy the video. We're going to talk about the repeatability of the second half after as well, but we'll start with Simon's question. How on earth did we win that game?
Simon. I don't know. We didn't deserve to. I liked Ten Hag's line at the start of the press conference where he said the only thing that was clear and obvious today was the fact that the better team didn't win. And I think that was a fair assessment, really, of the match. Man United had countless excellent opportunities. We'll go through them as we go through the things that went wrong with the first half and that did improve later in the second half. But yeah, I mean, as I've maintained really since the game, it should have been, 2-3-0 by 15, 20 minutes. And by half time, I think the United analysts were talking 5s and 6s. I think Ten Hag in the press conference was talking 7s and 8s. They felt they had enough promising openings and actual just opportunities, open goals, 1v1s. I
mean, it was comically consistent, the chances that they were being given, basically.
So I think we were very, very fortunate to get into halftime with the platform that we still had, which was 0-0. And then I do think the second half was better. I think we were much better in the second half. I think United were incredibly poor in the second period as well. And then if you were looking at the balance of things in the second half, I think it would be fair to say that we probably did deserve to win the second half. I think from that perspective, that's how we've managed to win, because it was still 0-0 at half time, and then we were the better side in the second period, and I managed to get through, get it over the line in the end. But in terms of the full 90 minutes, I really don't know. Some incredible luck is all I can really put it down to.
Yeah, I mean, this is sort of what Paul's question was. This is where the repeatability comes in. How high do you estimate the repeatability of that second half performance? Both goals, a bit fortunate. The cutback from Ings was very much Julen Lopetegui ball, as was the Emerson chance. That said, Man United were coming off an away fixture in Istanbul on Thursday, so any clear signs of their player fatigue and being partly responsible for second half performances. And I think it's difficult because we definitely put ourselves in the position to win the game. And I think once you take that second half, once you take the first half out of it and you go, right, well, they've missed a bunch of these chances, we just have to put our best foot forward and see what happens, then we've done it well. It is really, I think, if you, again, a game of two halves, Jack. A game of two halves, right? Not to use the cliche, but realistically, if you take away that first half, it becomes a much more, don't want to say even game, but certainly one that you could see, maybe West Ham can get a win here, as opposed to the first half where it's like, Jesus Christ, there's no chance on hell that they should be even remotely in this game.
Yeah, I think maybe the best way to discuss the repeatability of the second half is to explore what was different between the two halves, and that would probably give us a good start point to discuss, whether there's something there in that second period for us. I think all of this needs to be sort of prefaced by the very obvious context I think everyone's aware of, that these crises are self-created. It's not like we've been unfortunate to be poor in the first halves of a lot of games. We've just our initial setup, our out of possession approaches to a lot of these matches has been genuinely pretty awful, and I think we've been fortunate at times to get into half times with the platform that we've had intact. I think even looking back to sort of the Palace game earlier this season, Palace had several really, really good opportunities, had a couple of 1v1s themselves. Could have done better with, and this was similar really to that, in the sense that our initial setup was just nowhere near good enough. And then what we have seen is some good reactive changes and perform proactively, not just leaving it until 60-70 minutes when it's definitely out of sight. We've seen lots of halftime changes to improve things, which in itself is a good thing. The first half, though, can really be summed up by, and I spoke to Charlie before we started recording this and said, I don't really know. I could have come out from the kind of high line angle. I could have come out from the rest defense angle. I could have come at it from kind of like just an organization, communication angle. There are so many things wrong with everything that we try to do without the ball, and frankly with the ball as well, in the first half, that it's very difficult to kind of put it down to one simple thing. There are loads of examples to go through. Like I said, United, really in my mind should have been at least 4 or 5, and if you had a bit more United bias, you would probably be looking at it even more. I've picked out just a couple of examples to go through that really sum up what we were seeing, and I'm sure everyone will be aware of exactly what we were seeing, which is basically that Bruno Fernandes often had too much time on the ball. And then simultaneously, there are opportunities to run in behind for both Garnacho and Rashford. But most commonly, we saw Garnacho getting in behind, exploiting the space behind our defence. So in some of these early examples, we see, a couple of things. United like to play off 9 a lot in order to enable the space in behind for their wingers. So we see situations where Højlund drops in this example, right at the start of the game, you can see Mavropanos has gone up to Højlund to try and press him, to stop him from being able to move the ball on forwards. He doesn't actually get there in time to be able to effectively manage to stop that. The ball moves on to Fernandes, and Guido, who's dropped into the back line, then decides to go out as well, which I think it probably is a bad decision. And then we see the classic dynamics we've seen on the right hand side basically all season, where Wan-Bissaka ends up caught too high and one of the midfielders has to cover, and this time it's Edson Alvarez, and obviously Garnacho versus Alvarez is only going to be one winner when the ball goes in behind there. Later, just a few minutes later, we see Fernandes picking up the ball wide left. This is actually a really, really good ball out from the back from Onana. You would think actually defensively we're not in the worst situation here. You've got the entire back four back. And then Guido is getting across to Fernandes. He doesn't actually manage to get there in time. Big part of the issue here that sort of precedes where Fernandes actually releases the ball is that Wan-Bissaka is sort of caught between Garnacho and Fernandes. Guido's gone all the way out to Rashford. And then it's quite a long gap, as you can see, between where Rashford is and Fernandes is for Guido to actually race across and get there in time. That means that he doesn't get there in time because Wan-Bissaka's been caught between, means that Garnacho gets a head start on him, and Fernandes is able to play the ball in behind. You can see how high our centre-backs are as well, not dropping early, very, very keen to stay as high as possible and try and create situations where United's wingers would run offside. In this situation, Garnacho does get in behind and misses a 1v1. And then we've got later in the first half, pretty much exactly the same dynamics. You can see again the centre-backs, in this case Alvarez dropping in to cover Kilman because Kilman's gone out to Højlund. Again, United playing off 9, as I spoke about beforehand. A lot of situations where, Manchester United's number 9 will drop deep into kind of the 9.5 space. Very similar to what we would see previously with Spurs under Pochettino, where Kane used to drop off and then Son would run in behind. Very much the same dynamics really at the moment with United, whether it's Højlund or Zirkzee, they will drop off into the space that Kane used to drop off into, and then often instead of them being the players that were going to try and turn and play the ball, which we saw more with Kane, probably dropping off more exaggerated into even deeper positions to be able to drop and play himself. Actually, what a lot of the time Højlund and Zirkzee are doing is dropping to draw one defender out, bouncing the ball back into their midfield, whether that be Casemiro or Fernandes, and then that player looking for the ball in behind to Garnacho. So same thing here. Back four is all back, but Wan-Bissaka caught too high. Once more, the ball goes in behind to Garnacho. I think we were incredibly fortunate on this example that Garnacho strayed offside, and then also Mavropanos does a good job of absolutely clattering him to stop the chance that eventually unfolds where United have, I think it's about 4v2 by the time the ball arrives on the edge of the box. And in this example, really poor from Garnacho, actually should never be offside in this instance. And then we have the example for Dalot, which is obviously the open goal. Sometimes a picture says everything that you need to say, really. And how do you even begin to talk about what's going on here? Because Wan-Bissaka is the furthest forward player in the team. You've got both Alvarez and Guido covering into the back line. You've got no one looking at anywhere near close enough to Dalot. Dalot's quite clearly onside. Neither centre-back seem to be aware of the run. The line height is very strange. There's no midfield as a result of the positions that Alvarez and Guido end up playing. Paquetá and Soler are both trying to be the same thing, which is a left winger. So top to bottom, really, I mean, this is just ridiculous. You've got a line of 5 at the back and a line of 5 at the top, and neither the line of 5 at the top are not pressing, and the line of 5 at the back are not covering or playing anyone offside. So I mean, it's pretty much 10 players doing nothing on the pitch at the same time. So structurally, a complete disaster, and Dallo managed to get him behind. So really, on all of these examples, it can be condensed down to there were too many opportunities for United to play balls over the top of the defence or balls in behind the defence to get players in behind and into 1v1 situations with Fabianski. In the second half, obviously there's the 3 changes: Soucek, Todibo and Summerville come on at half time, and we see Todibo do what I would describe as a much better job than Mavropanos did in the first half of dealing with a lot of these situations. And it's not that Mavropanos was markedly bad, really, in the first half. It's that Mavropanos' instinct is often to come out and press really aggressively where he can. A lot of how he sees solutions to problems like the ones that we've seen are for him to kind of jump out of the defence and try and stop something at source rather than to drop back and cover. And we see really that the attitude shifts in the second period. Not only do we drop a lot more, but also we've got a bit of a structural shift. So Alvarez has dropped a lot deeper in the midfield. Sometimes he's actually joining the back line. So there are a lot of situations in the second half where we're playing more of a 5-4-1 than the 4-2-3-1 that we saw in the first half, or 4-3-3, depending on how you look at it. I think it's more of a 4-2-3-1 in this game. So those 2 shifts in sort of dynamics of how we attempt to defend has a really big impact on the kind of potential of these situations for Man United. So again, you see Fernandes. Ideally, I still don't think it's a good idea that you leave Fernandes with this much time to be able to play in behind, right? But still, Fernandes in space to be able to play balls in behind. You can see in this example, Guido trying to cover across on Garnacho. The big difference actually is when the ball is released, is instead of the centre-backs being on the halfway line, which is basically what we saw in the entirety of the first half, you can see the centre-backs react much earlier, drop off a lot deeper. You see Kilman's not really got any intention of trying to play offside here. He's dropping off way, way, way faster, ends up in a much deeper position. Todibo comes across to cover, and actually with Alvarez in the back line, instead of the sort of flat 4 that we saw a lot in the first half, or the 2 with the 2 fullbacks caught high, you can see that Alvarez is a lot deeper, and then by the time the ball gets worked into Højlund, which is actually forced by the fact that the Todibo is able to cover across in this situation. So instead of Garnacho in behind, able to then come in on the diagonal and run towards goal, Todibo is able to cover. That forces him to come back and come inside to Højlund. By the time the ball comes into Højlund, because Alvarez is in a deeper position, he's actually able to cover there and be in a position where the ball can't be worked across to Rashford. If this is the first half, I think really what we would see here is the ball would just go from Højlund out to Rashford, because there would be no one there to mark Rashford, and we'd probably see a goal in this example. And that sort of depth of the defensive line only got more and more exaggerated really as the half went on. So you see Fernandes later in the second half trying the same thing. He's drifted wide left. He's trying to play the ball in behind. And you can see that again the defense is a little bit deeper. Wan-Bissaka actually deeper on this occasion as well. Todibo's able to intercept it, and then just a couple of minutes after that, you see United, and this was a big fault really in Manchester United's play in the second half. They didn't seem to really adapt to the changes that we made. So we were deeper, we were playing a back 5 at times. We were much less keen to kind of get high up the pitch and press them. And then you see them still, Martinez 65 minutes, and it's 20 minutes into the second half. He's still trying to play the ball over the top of the defence. I mean, there's no space there to hit, By the time the ball is dropping, you've got really loads of defenders back able to cover this, and Todibo's able to win this duel with Fernandes, who's actually the player making the run in behind on this occasion. So, 2 issues really for United, in that the quality of their actions was nowhere near as good as it was in the first half in terms of their build-up, and then secondly, just lack of reaction really to the changes in dynamics within the game. That still trying to punt the ball over the top at every real opportunity that they get, and that actually really interrupted any kind of momentum that they were able to develop in the second half, in the same way that they were able to generate momentum in the first half. But I think in terms of all of those examples that I've worked through, the real key ones are the ones that are sort of incredibly similar to each other. So it's this example sort of 13 minutes into the game where the ball gets moved to Fernandes and he's able to play in behind to Garnacho, and then again in the second half where the ball gets worked wide to Fernandes and he attempts to play in behind for Garnacho in exactly the same way. And on both occasions, he's able to get the ball in behind the defence to Garnacho. The difference we can actually capture when we look at the tactics board. And in the first half, you can see a lot of what I didn't like actually about the way that we attempted to press is like they're trying to achieve this real width to the press. So you're trying to cover the whole pitch. I think a press is always most effective when you're able to cut the pitch in half, and then you're able to press aggressively across to one side. And then ultimately, because of this width that we're defending with, it becomes really easy for Onana on this occasion. He just throws the ball out to Fernandes. You've got 5v6 at the front, which should allow you to be somewhat effective if you are cutting the pitch. So, if, for example, Soler comes in here, Antonio is curving out here to try and force the ball across to this side. And then you're really working on trying to press aggressively, with a jump maybe to support on one side of the pitch. And everyone sort of drifts across to cover so that you're able to be, classic thing, you use the touchline as an extra defender. But because we don't do that, and we're trying to be super wide in the way that we're defending a lot of the time, it's actually just really easy for the ball to just get thrown out to the most dangerous player on the pitch. And Guido's actually caught out here with Rashford. He makes the decision early to kind of go with Rashford. And like I said, it makes it really difficult for him to get across into this area. Wan-Bissaka gets caught and the ball goes in behind. Where ultimately, even on the back line, I'd expect here, you're 5v4, you should have the numbers to deal with this kind of situation. It's just a little bit of communication, a little bit of organisation. Guido can come across here. Wan-Bissaka can be right side of Garnacho, or at least alongside Garnacho. And Emerson can just step inside a little bit. So that you can press to one side of the pitch a little bit more aggressively. But it becomes difficult because of the way that we're organised, where in the second half, again, I don't think numerically it's that brilliant. You've got loads of players forced forward in this example where the ball again gets thrown out to Fernandes. Same situations that we've seen a lot this season where the fullbacks end up being the two most advanced players because they're contributing in wide areas to try and create attacks. And the difference here is that when you look at the defence, is actually able to come and drift across really aggressively to one side of the pitch. So by the time the ball gets moved out to Fernandes and he plays it in behind, you're like something sort of like this by the time the ball's getting moved in behind. So that cover is there. It forces the ball back inside. You are able to delay, partly also because the defence is dropping earlier. So we're seeing, like I say, Kilman dropping into a much more conservative position much earlier. And you end up conceding, yes, chances. I mean, Højlund's able to shoot, right, from the edge of the box, but the difference is that it's Højlund shooting from the edge of the box rather than Garnacho going 1v1 with the keeper. So you concede much worse chances in transition. So I think there's 2 points about this. One, the dynamics are much better and it helps us defend these situations much better. We concede fewer high quality chances. But two, the second point is actually, I still don't think it's that great. I still don't think it's functioning at a particularly good level because I don't think we create enough from committing our fullbacks in the way that we do at the other end. I don't think we create enough high quality chances to assuage the fact that in transition, still not perfect, you're still conceding too many opportunities. And I wonder really if that opens up to some of the questions about, repeatability of the second half, where actually I don't think how much repeatability is there in getting a nonsense penalty to win the game at the end. I think we did create a couple of decent chances and that's good. But I think we've got to look at this a little bit more and say that had United shown a little bit more quality in the second period in some of these transition moments, they may have been able to generate a bit more than they did in the second period. And then also, just in terms of sort of control of the game, I don't know if it's really lining up with a bunch of the principles that we were trying to bring in and incorporate and integrate this season. There's lots of periods of the second half where the defence is super, super deep. So that last example that I showed where the ball goes in behind to Fernandes, I mean, look at the line of engagement. It's completely different. It's just Antonio up himself, maybe applying a little bit of pressure, but often not applying too much pressure. And then a flat line of 4 deeper and a flat line of 5 on the edge of the box. I mean, that is very, 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 very similar to everything we were doing under David Moyes previously. It's us exploiting transitions the other way, using players like Crysencio Summerville, Jared Bowen, Mikel Antonio, Wan-Bissaka in deeper areas to use their carrying ability and to create counter-attacking opportunities. So, yeah, yeah, there's probably a bit more repeatability in that for sure, because I think we've got players that are very good at that kind of thing. But I'm not sure it represents the, a big stylistic shift in the right, in the proposed direction.
Yeah, yeah. I think the sort of closer to Moyes style system, I guess, is something that can work in moments when we need it to, and I think it's something that we should definitely lean on in moments we need to. Like, I don't think it's as much as the whole idea was to step away stylistically from that, and I don't think the two are mutually exclusive. I think you just look at the group of players we have, and Summerville is someone who came on in this game and absolutely thrived in that system, right, or in that style of football. I don't think we should just throw the baby out with the bathwater in certain instances when we need it. We should be able to go, okay,
Absolutely.
we can play like this, and we have incredible players, not just Summerville, but obviously Bowen, Kudus, people like that who are unbelievable in those sort of style systems.